So today, we've got a story for you. It's about this really brilliant new way of looking at the gig economy. But, and this is the important part, it's also a cautionary tale. A story about a hidden danger where this amazing idea could just get lost. Like so many others. It could end up as useless space junk floating around in our massive universe of knowledge. And this quote? Wow. It just cuts right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? There's this massive and frankly well-known gap between the world of academic research and, the real world, the world of practice. It's this huge divide that can make absolutely incredible insights totally invisible to the very people who need them the most. Okay, so let's dive right into this gap. We're going to explore why it's even there, why it's a much bigger problem than you might think, and we'll introduce this really interesting concept from the source material called research debris. The core metaphor here is just so powerful. I want you to picture this. A satellite that's done its job, but it's still just stuck up there in orbit. Basically, inert space junk. Well, that's what happens to academic research that isn't used by the people it's meant for. It just gets stuck in this kind of intellectual orbit, having zero real impact on the ground. So, why does all this debris build up in the first place? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It's because academics and practitioners, they basically live in two completely different thought worlds. On one side, you've got academics. They're all about the logic of rigor. They want these big, general theories, and they publish them in these slow, peer-reviewed journals. But then, on the other side, you have practitioners. They are driven by the logic of relevance. They need solutions to specific problems, and they need them, like, right now. And look, this isn't just some abstract, theoretical problem. Oh no, this research debris has very real-world consequences. It creates these knowledge silos, right? Where amazing insights from one field just never make it to another. It means practitioners might underreact to super valuable information just because it's written in a way that's too technical or dense. And maybe worst of all, it means that crucial, lived experiences of people on the ground often get ignored completely.
So that really brings us to the core question of today's explainer. What happens when a truly brilliant new idea enters this broken system? Is it just doomed from the start? Is it destined to become just another piece of debris?
Well, this is where we're going to look at a specific case, a new piece of research from Balesia and her colleagues that, honestly, could be a real diamond in the rough. The problem is, it's at serious risk of getting lost in that same debris field we've been talking about.
So what's this research all about? Well, it focuses on a very specific corner of the gig economy called online task crowdwork. Now, I want to be clear. We're not talking about driving for Uber here. This is about those knowledge-heavy jobs, like software development, editing, or graphic design, the kind of stuff that's all done on global platforms like Upwork or Fiverr.
Okay, so to really understand these kinds of jobs, the researchers came up with a brand new concept, a new way to measure things. They call it algorithmic embeddedness. And what it does is it measures the extent to which a worker feels that their job is controlled by, or maybe even only exists because of, the platform's algorithms.
And it's really important to get this. This isn't just a simple yes or no thing. It's not an on-off switch. It's a spectrum. So for example, a job has high algorithmic embeddedness if you find yourself taking on little gigs just to please the algorithm, just to keep your profile active. On the flip side, it's low if you're working with a long-term client and you barely even think about the platform's matching algorithm anymore. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Another layer of nuance. Even when you're in a job with high embeddedness, you can feel it in two totally different ways. It can feel like an affordance, like a helpful tool that helps you find amazing jobs you'd never see otherwise, or it can feel like a constraint, like this stressful, invisible cage that's dictating your every move. Okay, so for a big idea like algorithmic embeddedness to actually make a real impact, it can't just show up to the party alone. It has to find its place in the research that's already out there. And in this case, wow, it's entering a really crowded and super complex conversation about what actually makes a job feel good. And you can see just how much our understanding of this has evolved over time. I mean, it all started way back in 1975 with the classic job characteristics model. But then fast forward to 2009, and you have researchers like Pierce adding new layers, like the idea of psychological ownership. And then even more recently, in 2020, Simnet and Castle pointed out the huge role that personality plays. You see, each new layer makes it that much harder for any single new idea to break through all that noise. Let's take that 2009 idea, for example.
Pierce and his colleagues argued that there was this huge missing piece of the puzzle: psychological ownership. They basically said that the feeling that your job is truly yours, that feeling is one of the most powerful motivators you can possibly have. Then, you jump to 2020, and Simonette and Castile come along and highlight experienced meaningfulness. And their point was, for a lot of people, it's not just about ownership. It's about feeling like your work actually matters, that it serves some kind of broader purpose and helps you become the person you want to be. And all of this brings us to a really key insight. It's not just about the job itself. It's also about who you are. The research is pretty clear that personality traits, things like enthusiasm and industriousness, are actually really strong predictors of whether someone will find their work meaningful. It just goes to show you, the whole puzzle of what makes a good job is deeply, deeply personal. So this all brings us right back to where we started, with this incredibly complex and constantly evolving academic conversation going on. How in the world do we stop a genuinely useful new idea like algorithmic embeddedness from becoming just another forgotten piece of research debris? Well, luckily, the research debris source material doesn't just leave us hanging. It actually provides a roadmap, and it's all about being intentional. We're talking about strategies like deep, long-term partnerships between academics and companies, using knowledge brokers, people who can actually translate these ideas, and maybe most practically adopting frameworks that practitioners in the field already know and use. And here is a really powerful idea. The source suggests that instead of tacking on a generic limitation section at the end of a paper, researchers should proactively write a whole new section called Pathways to Impact. What a concept, right? It forces them to think from day one about how to stop their own work from becoming debris. And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This isn't just a problem for academics. Not at all. In every single field, in every organization, there are brilliant ideas at risk of being totally overlooked or lost in translation. So the real question is for us, what can we do to build the bridges that are so desperately needed to turn all that knowledge into real, tangible impact?